Is this a case of we got to see demand pick up in order for any of these stocks to have hope?
Yeah, certainly for Exxon. Exxon is more refining exposed, more exposed to end oil markets, and that's really where they're suffering, particularly refining, and that becomes a jet fuel problem is an issue for them. Chevron, as you know, Melissa, is more upstream weighted, more an oil production company. And so the $40 oil price is kind of okay. It doesn't help, as you say, that oil is now plummeting back down again, but still less exposure to the really worst part of this whole environment, which is very much refining and selling jet fuel.
I get what you're saying about Chevron, Paul, but the fact of the matter is that the whole group trades along with the price of oil at this point. So what should investors be looking past? I mean, when do you think that correlation will break for a name like Chevron, which you seem to favor even in this environment?
I don't think it's going to break. These are huge oil companies that produce huge amounts of oil. So the question is, when are we going to rationalize the industry? And that could come as soon as next Tuesday, because if we get a 3D, as they're calling it on the Phillips call today, if we get a blue sweep, we could see some significant reduction in U.S. oil supply as a result of higher regulations on the environment. Exxon and Chevron are actually, particularly Chevron, environmentally very responsible in terms of flaring and methane emissions. It's really the tail of the U.S. industry that has a lot of issues environmentally, and that could get shut down. It's a definite possibility that would tighten the market, which is what we desperately need. We need less U.S. oil supply and more demand, which I think we'll get, and that should sort this thing out.
I want to underscore that, Paul, because I think that the conventional wisdom or the assumption is that you see that blue sweep and that's negative for big oil. But what you're actually saying is that because of a blue sweep, there will be less production for whatever reason, regulations, et cetera, and therefore the price will go higher, which is ultimately the main thing these companies need.
Right, Melissa. I'll write that down and steal it from you. Thank you.
ExxonMobil, how concerned should we be about the dividend?
Everyone's very concerned. As you know, it's 11% yield, which for a company of this scale of balance sheet is normally a very bad sign. In fact, I was watching earlier and there was a warning that you gave that 11% yield is not necessarily a good sign. What they said today is slightly odd. They said they're not going to raise gross debt anymore. So they're going to pay the dividend, continue paying the dividend from cash on the balance sheet. But it really sounds as if that cash runs out, which it will over the next year, it sounds like the dividend's going to get cut. So it's imperative for them that we get back to flying, that refining comes back over the course of the next year. They can't make it. I think they as much said that on the call. Another 2 years like this, the dividend will have to go.
In the broader energy space, Paul, and I know this may not necessarily be your area of expertise, but solar has really been catching a bid on this notion that there will be some sort of a blue sweep happening next Tuesday. Names like First Solar, SunPower, really seen a bid at the expense, perhaps, of big oil. Because you seem to favor big oil in a blue sweep sort of landscape, is that a pairs trade in your view?
We're all renewable analysts now, believe me, in the oil patch. My website will tell you it's energy transition on Wall Street is what I do. I was watching the Sunrun CEO on Wednesday in an interview. She's very impressive. She had a great concept when she started out. Those stocks, as you know, have actually sold off recently in the past month or so. In fact, as Biden became more likely to win, which was interesting. Tesla, as you know, is the same. But the mega theme here is interesting. The market cap of the companies is so small that the investors are really struggling to deploy capital. And so regardless of valuation, there's just so much money trying to force its way into this sector that the outlook, certainly for the beginning of the Biden administration, if that's what we get, is extremely positive. And by the way, basically, these things are economic. It's a mega theme of people wanting more solar panels, more electric cars, more control over their own home energy. That's a mega theme that I think the market's going to keep buying pretty much regardless of who wins the election.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.